Welcome to Tractor Training for Employers. My name is Jeff Lutz. I'm the program manager for the Safety and Claims Program at the Washington State Farm Bureau. Each new operator should be familiar with contents of the operator's manual and piece of equipment used. If there's an implement that goes on a tractor, they should have understanding of the operator's manual of the tractor and the piece of equipment that's attached. Do some on-site practical training for the specific equipment, starting on level work ground and advancing to more complex work areas. Understand the specific hazards presented by the work site, such as slopes and obstructions. And then people should have a driver's license if they're operating machinery and equipment on public roads. You can be 16 years old and operate tractors, but you must have a driver's license. Tractors are one of the most hazardous pieces of equipment on the farm. From 2011 to 2018 nationally, there were 1,285 occupational injuries that became fatalities resulting from injuries nationwide. That's 1,285 people that didn't come home to see their families at the end of the day. And these are just fatalities. There's other accidents that can cause serious injuries that don't result in death. The fatality investigative reports from Washington State Department of Labor and Industries shows an example of a tractor fatality where a gentleman was operating a tractor in an orchard. The slope is not very much, and he raised the mower that he was using up in the air and negotiated the tractor a couple different times, moving in different directions. And with that high center of gravity, the tractor rolled and landed on top of him, and he was fatally injured. All tractors must be trained specifically on the operation of the tractor to be used and the topographical features of the land where the tractor is going to be operated initially and then at least annually thereafter. If conditions change, then training should be redone. Employee operating instructions should include how to securely fasten the seatbelt when you're using the roller protective structure. If the roller protective structure or ROPS is in the up position, seatbelts must be worn. If the area is being used, it has an exemption because of overhead obstruction, no seatbelt. ROPS is down, no seatbelt. Where possible, avoid operating the tractors near ditches, embankments, holes. Stay off slopes that are too steep for safe operations. Reduce speed when turning, crossing slopes, on rough, slick, or muddy surfaces. And make sure that attention is being paid where you're going on roads and around trees and at row ends. Make sure that people are paying attention to what they're doing as they're operating. Passengers, tractors, most low-profile tractors have one seat. There should be no passengers on that machine. On larger tractors, certainly there's a jump seat, and that is provided for learners to be able to learn how to run the tractor. There's usually a seatbelt provided for that. Make sure that everybody's wearing a seatbelt in the cab while you're moving the tractor. Remember, those cabs are usually roller protective structures themselves. Operate that tractor smoothly, no jerky turns, no quick starts, no quick stops. And then hitch only to the drawbar, because that drawbar is at one of the lowest center of gravities for that tractor. When you hitch higher on the tractor, it changes the center of gravity. Set your brakes securely and park and lock if available when you're done. So to prevent hazards, let's discuss some safe operating procedures in the upcoming slides. In addition to that training, you should also be familiar with the contents of the operator's manual and the equipment operates specific for your workplace. Once adequately trained, specific equipment prior to operating the equipment, you should always walk around the tractor checking for any deficiencies. Check for all guards and shields. Make sure those are all in place. Make sure that you assess the work area and examine and have a plan. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? How am I going to access this area? Use handrails and handholds getting on and off the tractor. Larger tractors have steps going up and down. Face the tractor when you're going up the steps. Face the tractor when you're coming down the steps. Make sure that the handrails and handholds are clean, the steps are clean, it's easy to access. Adjust the seat to easily reach the controls and put your seatbelt on. Only start the tractor once you're sitting in the operator's seat. So tractor hazards, rearward tractor rollovers can occur when center of gravity is too high in the tractor. Just make sure that the prevention of that is to hitch low. If the tractor gets stuck, sometimes people will try to move it differently and try to get it out. You might need to get another tractor to get it out. It's stuck. It's prone to rear end rollover. Climbing a hill that's too steep can cause rear end rollover, clutch being released too quickly, or running at a high speed. The hitching I mentioned, it's hitched too high. Sideways rollovers are usually caused by operating on a hillside that's too steep, around ditches and banks, on an area that can give way, driving into holes, center of gravity high, and then having that tractor go over it, lose the center of gravity, and roll over. PTO entanglements, you can make sure that everything has operational integrity with guarding before you run the tractor. Crushing injuries from hitching, falls from tractors and runovers, all things that need to be considered. And then lastly, think about collisions and equipment and tractors on public roads. So let's go over those real quick. PTO entanglements. That PTO is moving about 9 revolutions per second, and you can't get away from it. Crushing from hitching equipment. You can be crushed from when you're connecting equipment. You could have a drawbar pin that isn't secured well, and it can jump and come off and can crush you. And then falls from tractors and certainly public roads. People on public roads don't always pay attention. Maybe they come over a rise and wow, there's a tractor in front of them. So ingoing pitch points, let's talk about that real quick. When two rotating objects are moving together, at least one of them moves in a circle, these points can mangle or maim somebody. They come in all shapes and sizes. They may be belts and pulleys, chain drives, or feed rollers. Just make sure that those have guards on them. If there's you're putting product into a roller, make sure that there's guarding to prevent people from being pulled in. Chains and sprockets, belts and pulleys, all guarded. PTO shaft guards can become nicked. They can get rust on them. They can have dried mud or manure. And as that's spinning, that can catch you and pull you in. So check all that equipment for wrap points and make sure that all the guarding is in place. Shear points are created when two edges of an object are moved together, and they can come close enough to cut soft material. These result in serious lacerations or even amputations. Stored energy, I talked quickly about that. Remember that hydraulics and compressed air, springs, gravity, that's unsuspected pressurization or depressurization of these systems that can result in injuries. And just like this crush point, moving forward, moving backward, coming into contact, you get your fingers in there and it can crush you. So prevent sideways rollovers. That's the most fatal type of tractor accident. They can happen in less than a second. Once that tractor center of gravity is outside the safe zone, there's nothing the operator can do. Drive at appropriate speeds. Rushing is not worth your life. We had tractor fatalities last year where speed was an issue. Make sure that you're staying away from steep slopes, ditches, and embankments. Operate slowly if you're around those. Use caution. Keep the front end loader and buckets low. Keep your implements low to transport them. Drive forward down steep slopes and back up them rather than operating sideways against it. And then slow down while pulling rear mounted equipment. Keep your front end lower. Preventing rear rollovers. Keep that front loader bucket low. Add weights if you need to. Back up or drive down steep hills. Hitch to the drawbar. No jerky motions on the clutch and driving. And if the tractor's stuck, use another tractor to get it out. So let's talk real quick about roller protective structures and crush zones versus safe zones. So survival zones are created when that ROPS is up and the seatbelt is on. If the seatbelt is not being worn with the ROPS up, you might as well not have the ROPS at all. So seatbelts are required. If there's an area that is overhead obstruction and you can't get a low profile tractor through there, then you are exempt from using ROPS and a seatbelt. No seatbelt if the ROPS is down. If the ROPS are up, make sure that that seatbelt is on, and they're required on most tractors built after 1976, low profile tractors. If they're before 1976, there is most likely a retrofit kit available. Problem with retrofit kits is many times they're not portable. They have to have the rear tires removed to mount the kit and then reinstalled. So it's not like it's fold up, fold down, but ROPS has to always be used unless there are overhead obstructions. Safe hitching, talked quickly about that. Keep hitch low, use counterweights, use proper safety clips and pins. The pins, when they're out of the drawbar pin itself, that safety clip on the bottom of it keeps that from jumping up and down and coming off. Keep those chains and cables tight to where if it does come off, it's not going to run away with you. Disengage the PTO when not in use, and never ever use an unguarded PTO. Employers are required to provide a workplace free from recognized hazards, and operators are required to review their operation before they use it. So if they're looking at a piece of equipment, machinery that is not guarded with PTO, PTO is unguarded, make sure that that is taken care of before operations. So remember, preventing falls from tractors, one seat, one rider. Clean your shoes, clean the footholds, clean the steps, face the equipment going up, face it coming down, use 3 points of contact, shut off the engine, set the brakes. Sometimes diesel is not very combustible, but sometimes we use gasoline powered equipment. Never refuel it while the engine's hot. Let it cool down first. Always refuel outside. You might need to ground the equipment. Store your fuel outside. Know where your closest fire extinguisher is. And never ever add water to a hot radiator. When operating on public roads, always use slow moving vehicle emblems. Keep the tractor chemical free. If you've got pesticide residue on the tractor, it needs to be cleaned off before the next use, and proper PPE needs to be worn depending on the product label. Park in a safe place. Disengage the PTO. Lower implements to the ground. Turn off the engine, put it in neutral, and set the brakes and remove the key. Don't ever use a tractor for the task that it's not designed for. They're not tow trucks. They're not vehicles to run errands. They're not for joyriding. They're not for herding cattle. So let's do a summary real quick. You know, tractors have contributed measurably to farm productivity, and they've helped to make it possible for farmers to feed not only themselves, but hundreds of others. Tractors today are the safest ever. They're still involved in many accidents, some of them fatal. Over the years, manufacturers have added many safety features like ROPS, seatbelts, PTO shields, traveling lights, heated cabs, all the safe features in the world, but they don't replace a well-trained operator that's aware of the